Oh, hi. You caught me breaking a mental sweat, too. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. How's everybody doing? Having a good year so far? Having a good past couple years? I hope your past couple years have been okay. It's been okay this year. How about you? How you guys having a good this year? It's that time of year again, as it is every year, except a little bit further back this year because they decided to push the Oscars back a little bit further for whatever reason, because we're already a fourth of the way through the new year of films, and we all know the Batman's going to win Best Picture this year, so why not just get it over with and move on. But for those that are familiar with this channel, you may recognize this format that I'm doing. I've watched every Best Picture nominee for last year, and what I like to do is I like to go through each one, talk about why I think in an objective way, why I think they were nominated for Best Picture, kind of go off of reviews I've seen and different opinions, my own as well. I will try to keep my opinions out as much as possible, but I'm sure I will bring in some subjective thoughts here and there. But for the most part, you know, we're just going to talk about the Best Picture nominees, why I think they were nominated. While I don't think that this was one of the better years in a while, I feel like there's at least some quality in here. So without further ado, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it with the first one in alphabetical order. It's a heartstring tugger, that's for sure. It's a very personal work made by somebody who I'd expect would have at least a level of respect from his Academy peers, except for maybe Emma Thompson. There's a bevy of really strong performances all throughout. Jamie Dornan shows that he's way more capable than his 50 Shades films may have you think. While Judy is, you know, always Judy, and she was nominated, it's hard to argue that her performance was any better than Caitriona Ralph and her extremely Irish name. There's just an affectionate feeling that is very infectious and really makes you wish that your family loved each other the way that this family does. It's pure Oscar bait through and through, but that's not always a bad thing. CODA, or Child of Deaf Adults. There isn't a whole lot here that's like new, groundbreaking, different from anything else. The deaf community as a whole didn't completely agree that this movie really accurately portrayed the day-to-day struggles of deaf people and deaf families, but this is a movie all about performances. Emilia Jones is so fucking good in this movie. She's incredibly charming and vulnerable, but all the same time she's trying to break out of her shell. She's trying to live a dream. At the same time, she's got to help out her family with their waning fishing business, and it's just a struggle of trying to balance all those things at once. And the whole Rossi family they're all great, including Troy Kotsur, who probably a career best performance. There's this one scene that I really do love between the two where he puts his hands on her vocal cords so he can feel as she sings. It's just a really touching, beautiful scene. But the scene where Amelia sings Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now is the point where it transcends the film into something a little more special. This one I genuinely don't get. Star power, availability on Netflix, name recognition, that's all I can really think for this one. It's not subtle enough to make you ask questions, and it's not smart enough to say anything worth listening to. You watch it, it makes you think people are bad, which they are. It's not really going to do much to inspire anybody to do anything besides go on Twitter and tweet out that "don't look nowish," hashtag so true, and hashtag we're fucked. It's very meandering. It's too on the nose to be a real satire. Not only that, the editing is absolutely horrendous. It's amateur, and I can't allow this to be uploaded to the Netflix servers. Also, I don't understand what Hollywood's obsession is now of turning Mark Rylance into this autistic, mumbling man-child. Simplicity at its finest. The runtime may scare people off a little bit, but I think it's one of the film's great strengths. Enough time for us to learn about the characters, enough time for the characters to learn about each other and formulate bonds. It's quiet and hypnotic and very meditative. You could almost call it ASMR encompassed into a movie. I can't say why, but the film spends about 40 minutes going through a kind of prologue where it lulls you in, but before you know it, credits start to roll. opening credits start to roll, and it just kind of snaps you back, and I loved it. At no point did I really feel like there was a slow spot, or did I think to check the time, and I was just kind of entranced by it. It deals with grief, the unknown, the possibility that we may never really know each other, or if we ever truly know someone. I don't know if meditative poetry core is a real genre, but I feel like it should be. This is the definition of epic. The scale, the sound, the music, the world. I was in the minority, I think, of people that didn't love it. Not my cup of tea, but I can at least appreciate all the work, the love, the time, the talent, the effort that went into this, and appreciate just really how epic it is. It was a sight to behold. It's an almost unadaptable source material, but the filmmakers were able to pull it off in a way that really is impressive. Just don't expect to get the full experience just yet. This is an interesting Best Picture selection as well, but the Academy loves their biopics. I'm not quite sure though why we need a movie centered on the guy that shot Venus and Serena Williams out of his penis. Like, Will Smith is good, but is he better than Jason Isaacs in Mass? Or Simon Rex in Red Rocket? Or even LeBron James in Space Jam? Okay, you're right. Will Smith is pretty good in this movie. It doesn't really do much, though, to differentiate itself from other biopics or really break new ground, but it's an endearing and moving look at what and who pushed the Williams sisters to become such stars. I wish, and I can't wait for more biopics where the subject of the film, they just show seriously and honestly what a scumbag these people were, and they don't hide it. And I feel like that's a problem we have with most biopics, and why a lot of the times they're very paint by numbers. PTA's an Oscar darling. He doesn't always get the wins, but he always gets the nominations. There are some really star-making performances in this. Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman, they're both incredible, and they're incredible together, and they exude a type of sensuality that it may feel wrong, but not entirely. I don't necessarily think the relationship between them is something that's entirely sexual, but just two people that found each other at different points of their lives and just use each other as a way to navigate through their own daily struggles. A platonic love, if you will. Beyond that, though, it's really just a delightful tribute to California of old, and I think it's one of the more palatable of PTA's films that he's come out with so far. There's no doubt that Guillermo del Toro loves movies, and he has a certain way that he renders those thoughts in his head and presents them on screen. The tone and the swampy palette is deliciously bleak and speaks to the way Del Toro likes to light his films. That was something that I wrote down. Performances are solid, including Bradley Cooper's descent into madness. And these days I feel like Bradley Cooper has, not that he's disappeared, I don't know if he's like a chameleon in his roles now, or if I just don't think about him anymore, but he was in at least a couple movies. I mean, Licorice Pizza and Nightmare Alley, and I just feel like he's not doing anything. It's really weird, and I don't know if anybody else feels the same. Probably not. It doesn't really live up to the reputation of the original. It's long and slow and bloated, but it's well enough made that the Academy can cross off their yearly period piece drama from their quota and call it a day. This is once again an example of a stellar cast giving it their all and everything coming together for a highly respected director for history to be made. Power of the Dog is the first film directed by a woman nominated for 10 Academy Awards, and Jane Campion became the first woman to ever receive more than one Best Directing nomination. This is probably the gayest cowboy movie since Brokeback Mountain, and I don't mean that facetiously. There's a quiet subtlety to it. Couple that with intense sexual tension, and you've got yourself a beautiful, meditative, erotic drama that really hits hard. Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons, they're a dynamic duo on and off screen. She's been able to convey the depressed and repressed woman in several films now, and she always pulls it off. And I watched Like Mike somewhat recently, and I'm just happy to see that Jesse Plemons went down the road he's at now, Oscar-nominated actor, and he didn't go down the road of shitty child films. Not to mention Johnny Greenwood does it again with a superb score to add to his repertoire. A well-paced and incredibly choreographed musical with the name recognition of Steven Spielberg and the original West Side Story is bound to turn some heads. It's a 156-minute film that really doesn't feel like it. It moves at a breakneck speed, and before you know it, the credits roll. The aesthetic is beautifully colored and feels nostalgic. Really, the film as a whole feels nostalgic. The accents, the clothes, the way it's shot feels so authentically old school. Rather than quick cuts, the camera keeps rolling and opens up and allows for the dancers to really perform. Not a lot of quick cuts at all, which really allows for the dancing to speak for itself. I kind of sense a growing disdain with Spielberg the past few years and the films he's made, and while I don't think they're his best, they're not bad in any way. Steven Spielberg is a very talented, if not one of the most talented guys in Hollywood, and I think this shows that he still got it. And I can't begin to explain like how breathtaking some of these shots and sequences are. These modern cameras are able to do things that old cameras only wish they could comprehend. And the camera moves with such fluidity that you don't know if it's male or female. As far as remaking a classic musical, I don't think it gets much better than this. And now with all those out of the way, it's time to talk about what everybody loves to talk about. What should have been nominated? Now, as I said at the beginning, I feel like a lot of these deserve a spot. There's reasoning behind those spots, and I think pretty much most of them deserve it. There's some you could snip out, but what would we replace it with? Well, that's the question here. The Worst Person in the World? Now, while that's nominated for Best Foreign Film, I see no reason why it can't be nominated for Best Film. I've heard a lot of people talk about Tick, Tick, Boom. I've heard a lot of people talk about Parallel Mothers. While I haven't seen Parallel Mothers, Tick, Tick, Boom is at least something that has Oscar potential. Performances, it's musical. The Last Duel, maybe? I feel like that one was incredibly underappreciated. Hopefully it gets a new life now that it's on HBO Max. But why don't you just let me know down below what you think should have been nominated. Tell me what you'd take out, tell me what you'd add in. Curious what everybody else's thoughts are on the Best Picture nominations though. I haven't really heard a lot of grumblings from people within our circle, so let me know down below. And with all that said and done, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And with that, see you next time.